Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 331st Wynkahthu Wandering episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Dark Guy Tom. Thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We are so glad you're here. Reach out to us on the socials at Mando_Vision on Twitter/X and Instagram, Mandovision at Blue Sky, and you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we're back, and as you can tell, I'm a little loud today, which means we are not Mandovision After Dark. We are Mandovision when the sun's out. I don't know. I got to come up with a better name for that. But yeah, so we're recording when the light is out, and I can be more boisterous. I can get a little bit more excited, which is good because we have an exciting episode to talk about today. So I'm really looking forward to that. But please keep in mind, we are still recording a couple weeks out, so we will not have a lot of current news things. If things are happening for you in the Star Wars world, I am not in a position to comment on them. I will be away from the computer for a little while. That's why we have these episodes being recorded in advance and scheduled, and so that you still get them weekly, but I'm not around to record anything new. So anything that happens, I won't have a fresh take on. Well, I'll tell you what, as you listen to this episode, I should be getting back home. So, we'll get caught up on things current event-wise as it happens. We do have a little bit of current events to talk about because last night was the Emmy Awards, the awards for all the great television shows that exist right now. And I think you guys know the direction I want to go in, which is Andor didn't win a lot of the awards that I wanted to win. But if you remember when we talked about the nominations, Andor didn't get a lot of the nominations I wanted it to get. I think it's a darn shame that more of the cast wasn't recognized for their performances with even nominations. And while we did win we like I was part of it, but while Andor did win an award in the writing department, it didn't win for any of the episode it was nominated for directing. It did take home a bunch of technical awards, and that's all very good and very exciting. But let's talk about it. I mean, the television landscape is very, very crowded. There's a lot of good content out there. There's a lot of good shows that you can watch on so many wonderful streaming services. I mean, looking over the list of the shows that it was up against, I mean, listen, I love Andor, but that is a very fierce competition amongst the shows that had gained so many strong nominations, and so I can't really get too angry about it because, again, like I said, even the performances I wanted to be recognized weren't by the nomination process. Nothing for the wonderful people in that show who I think were standouts. And maybe that's part of the problem with that show being such a wonderful ensemble cast, is that they sort of canceled each other out, which is but it's still unfortunate because there's so many just wonderful performances. Genevieve O'Reilly in particular, I think, was just a criminally overlooked for what she did as Mon Mothma in that series. And that's just one example of it. So I suppose I can take some comfort in that some genre stuff did take home some good awards. Kristen Milotti for The Penguin, which if you didn't watch the Penguin series on HBO, I thought that was a very, very, very good show. Like that a bunch. Good stuff there. And while we're talking about it, I'm just going to say something too. One of the things I was looking at, I'm going to get in trouble. People aren't going to like what I'm about to say. That show, White Lotus, I don't care for it. I just don't. I watched the first 2 seasons, and I just felt like I was wasting my time. And I know so many people out there are fans of it and love it, and that's okay. But when I took some comfort knowing that at least in a lot of categories, Andor didn't lose to that show. That would have upset me probably more than anything. The hows and whys of me and my feelings on White Lotus. If you really want to get into it, we can. I don't think now's the time or the place, so we're not going to do it. We're going to look forward and talk about our our episode of Star Wars Rebels for the rewatch. And like I said, this is a good one. I'm really excited about it. I had a lot of fun with this episode. When you look at the ratings for it online, they are in the low area because, again, it's not mythology episode. It's not one of the episodes that drives anything home. It's not like what you would consider to be an important episode. But it's a really good one. I think this episode is fantastic because it balances the fun and humor of Star Wars with some really decent action stuff in there too. It's got a good action sequence in it. It's got a heist aspect to it. It's got Hondo Ohnaka, so it's gonna have that fun element to it, and probably one of the better Hondo episodes in my opinion. I think the last Hondo episode was okay. It was good, but this episode also has like a professional screenwriter behind it too. This episode was written by the great Gary Whitta, who was working on Rogue One. So we got some serious writing chops involved in this episode, and let's just go ahead and I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the episode more on the other side. So let's go ahead and get our credentials out of the way. Basically, let's go ahead and do it. This is Star Wars Rebels Season 3, Episode 9, The Wynkahthu Job. Original air date November 26, 2016. Our plot for this episode: the Rebels join forces with ruthless. Oh my God, I should have read this plot first because it already is making me laugh. All right, the Rebels join forces with ruthless pirates to salvage a freighter full of weeds. However, the mission turns out to be way more dangerous than they expected. Ruthless pirates. Not the way I would describe Hondo necessarily, but okay, sure, let's go with that. The episode is directed by Mel Zwire, written, as I mentioned, by Gary Whitta. Our primary cast for this week's episode: Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall is Hera Syndulla, Freddie Prinze Jr. is Kanan Jarrus, Tia Sakar is Sabine Wren, Steve Blum is Zeb Aurelios. I think I've been saying Zeb's name wrong for a while. I just realized this the other night. I was like, I think I've been saying it wrong. So, my bad, Zeb. I got you, though. Dave Filoni's Chopper. Steven Stanton is AP5. We get AP5 back. What another bonus for this episode. James Hong is back as Morgan. Jim Cummings is Hondo Ohnaka. And D. Bradley Baker is Melsh. The little Ugnaught. Yeah, Welsh. He's back. So there's our cast. As we sort of laid it out, our rebels, our heroes, team up with Hondo and as Morgan to find treasure and proton bombs. And things don't quite go the way they wanted it to. Let's go ahead and get on the other side. We'll talk about it a little bit more, all right? You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. And let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
So as the episode opens, we see the Ghost in space, and it's linking up with a very familiar ship, the shuttle that Hondo broke away with on our last appearance at the beginning of the season, when they were at the salvage yard trying to get those Y-wings. And we know that we're in for a good time here, but plot twist: as Morrigan's part of this plan, has his new partner, and they're going to go to Wynkahthu to find an Imperial freighter, much like the one we saw AP5 on before, and get some proton bombs, get some treasure for the pirates. As Morgan, as we know, has a history with Hera, so she's already kind of not in on this. And they're still trying to, Hera and Kanan are still trying to get the point across to Ezra that Hondo is not the friend that he appears to be. I think it's exactly the words that Kanan uses to Hera, is that Ezra's got to learn that Hondo is not the friend he appears to be. Hondo is manipulative, and maybe he is a friend to Ezra in a certain sense, but only until Ezra can't help him anymore. Right now, it's a beneficial relationship for Hondo, and so he will continue to exploit it and rope Ezra into things that he should know better than doing. But especially with Asmorgan there, I mean, Asmorgan's a bad dude. He's into human trafficking, for God's sakes. Well, trafficking, I guess, because it's interspecies trafficking. But it's how do I even describe this episode? Because there's so much going on in it, even just in the background. Like when Asmorgan first appears, and Hondo's talking and kind of laying out what the plan is. You see Az Morgan over his shoulder, picking at his ear and finding something on his finger, and then wiping it off on the bulkhead of the ship. I mean, there's just funny stuff in the background of the show. Like, keep in mind, like watch this episode, because things are kind of happening. Just funny things. The sequence with Hondo, again, laying out the plan, but he says, he uses like words like blind and see in front of Kanan in his clumsy efforts to apologize for saying those words to a blind man. It's very comical. Like, I really think they do a great job balancing the humor in this episode, because again, Hondo is a fun character, but he also can be dangerous. Remember when we first met Hondo in the Clone Wars? He's poisoning people, getting people to pass out. So like he has some edge to him. He's lost some of that steel that made him so much tougher during the Clone Wars. But again, he's a character you have to pay attention to, because he's got plans within plans, and it's you never really know where you stand with him as Ezra reminds Hondo. Like, we are well aware that you kind of abandoned us last time, and even though it worked out and we all survived and here we are, like we still remember that. So Ezra gets a little bit more of that in this episode. It's more learning about who he can trust and how far he can trust them. But it's another episode too where Ezra shows a little bit of immaturity, because he's the one who's come together with this mission. He believes he should be the one leading it, but Hera, knowing how Ezra is around Hondo, immediately puts Zeb in charge of the mission. And Ezra doesn't like that. And Ezra kind of pouts about it and does things he shouldn't do, like cutting through a bulkhead door that they're going to need to be intact later, but it won't be. So, I mean, again, a lot of things in this episode kind of play out. And, like I said, that scene where Ezra's going to cut through that door when all he has to do is wait for Chopper to open it, but he doesn't want to because he's trying to show his worth, show his value to Zeb, and that he should be the one leading this. Because, like, hey, why are we just waiting for the droid to do it? I'll just cut through it. Well, later in the episode, you find out why cutting through is a bad idea. Maybe waiting for Chopper to do it wouldn't have been such a big deal. So you have that going on, sort of like almost like a tantrum that Ezra's having, because he's the one he's not in charge, but he's also seeing more of who Hondo actually is. The desire for treasure and wealth over loyalty and the camaraderie that he has with his new family in the Phoenix Squadron. So again, it's a fun episode. The heist aspect is really good. That Welsh is on the ship. We learned that Hondo abandoned them at one point. But he's like, no, but I came back. So, I mean, you look at that relationship that Hondo has with his Ugnaught buddy, who the Ugnaught views it as Hondo having abandoned him. But no, Hondo spins it now. He's like, no, we came back for you. Look, I got reinforcements. Here we are. And then we find out about the security droids. AP5 informs us about the security droids on board. And the security droids are a fun nod to what was at the time out of canon looking Dark Trooper droids, right? Like, yes, they're full-on droids, but they got the big Dark Trooper kind of helmet. The bodies don't quite match up with what we're used to seeing, but that's okay. Still a pretty fun nod to what was then still out of canon. So, like, technically this kind of brings them back in, but they don't call them Dark Troopers, not in the way that they were using the Mandalorian, but still a fun little nod to that, and they're definitely heavily inspired by the Dark Troopers. So good stuff on that front. And the use of those troopers comes in pretty interesting too, because by all rights, once they get together with Welsh and they go into the cargo hold, it looks like the robbery of this freighter is going to be pretty straightforward. I like the grappling sequence. I like the way they have to load things. You have the weather conditions outside, so they have to be very, very careful as they run these proton bombs and creates a loot over to the other side. And again, Zeb's in charge for a reason. They're getting the proton bombs first. So when you cut over and you see that Ezra's helping Hondo try to load up the treasure instead of the proton bombs, Zeb lets him have it because he's not doing this right. He's making the wrong choices. The need is the proton bombs for the rebellion, and then we'll get Hondo his treasure. And again, Ezra has a hard time with that. Not, again, taking orders, the way he sort of sarcastically salutes Zeb at every chance he gets in this episode. So It is an episode trying to show some growth for Ezra by the end of it when he realizes that, this I had these little outbursts, and they didn't really do us much good. They were not good for us. Just the best way to put it. And then the episode turns with the introduction of the security droids. We find out that one of them has been activated, and one of them begins to capture the pirates, captures Asmorgan, captures Zeb. And, Asmorgan goes off on his own while he and Hondo squabble over treasure. Zeb, not being able to get a hold of Asmorgan, goes after Asmorgan, gets knocked out by the droid. They wake up in the brig together. Luckily, the droid wasn't too smart and left their comms on, so Zeb's able to call for some help, get some backup to get out of there. But then Asmorgan decides he can take on the droid by himself, and that activates the other droids. And then we have a full-on fight on our hands, and that's when that bulkhead door comes in handy, except Ezra had cut his way through it in the lightsaber. So the freighter's going down. It's crashing into the eye of this maelstrom on Wynkahthu. So there is a bit of a ticking time bomb element to it as the ship is going further and further into this maelstrom. It's just a really fun. I think it's a fun episode. There's good action in it. There's teaching moments for Ezra, and I don't know. I enjoyed it. Like the little background stuff with Asmorgan picking his ear and the offhand, vision jokes at Kanan's expense. Good stuff here. Sabine's the biggest party pooper in the group in this episode, but that's okay. She's doing the grappling thing. She's got that mag handle thing to remove the proton bombs around. Hondo makes it off with no treasure because Welsh has put himself in there because he won't be left behind again. So Asmorgan and Hondo get nothing. Welsh lives. And again, I just find it a simple, enjoyable episode of the show. I think it's a lot of fun. And we'll get to the big stuff next week because that's what we have going on. I don't really have a lot else to say about it. It's a straightforward enough episode. Teachable moments for Ezra. Hondo kind of continues to show that he is out for himself, and that's what Ezra needs to learn. But again, Ezra's having his little outbursts and tantrums too, and not being in charge, thinking he needs to be in charge. And Zeb's doing a perfectly fine job of leading the mission. One little quirk on the episode I thought was interesting. When Zeb and Ezra are making their way off the freighter back to the Ghost, and they're on the grappling lines, the droids cut that grapple line, and they go crashing. They cuts, they drop. Zeb's able to hold onto the line, is able to grab Ezra, and they begin to climb while Ezra deflects their blaster bolts with the lightsaber. Great sequence. But at that point, I don't know why Kanan hasn't cut the cable still linking to that ship. It felt kind of silly to keep that link there when he could have just cut it. They could have pulled away without worrying about the security droids blasting at them from a locked-in space. So I don't know, again, if I'm overlooking something on that regard, please let me know, but I feel like it was unnecessary to keep that. Once the line was cut, they should have cut the other one and just flown away. That's just how I feel about it, though. I give the episode 7.5 buckets, friends. 7.5 buckets of fun, because this is a fun episode of the show, and I dig it. So that's all I got to say about that. All right, just another reminder as we wrap up the podcast that, hey, I am still away. But the next episode you hear will be back in real life, and we'll get caught up on all current events in Star Wars, and we're going to have a lovely chat about anything I missed while these episodes have been coming out. So, that being said, go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, respectful, supportive, understanding, embracing of other opinions, even though they're not right. No, that's not what I meant to say. No, but understanding, listening, hearing each other as Star Wars fans, even though we don't agree with everyone's we don't have to agree with everyone's opinion in Star Wars, but good. Listen, have a dialogue, have a conversation, and be nice about it. Just be nice. Patrick Swayze said it in Roadhouse. I'm saying it here. Be nice. And we can do that. That's what Bucketheads do. That's what Mandovision listeners are all about. Niceness, kindness, being rad. All right, so follow us again on the socials at Mando_Vision on Twitter /X and Insta, Mandovision on Blue Sky, and email me, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And if your podcasting platform supports it, sweet 5-star reviews. They help the show out tremendously as we continue to grow and expand the Buckethead Army. I don't like saying Buckethead Army, but Buckethead Nation, that sounds way cooler. So, we'll be back next week. You guys take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, this podcast, it only ends one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Purple guy, Mando girl, and Ezra Bridger. My, look how you have grown.
Admiral, we have enemy ships in Sector 47.
It's a trap!